Microphone check. Microphone check. Microphone check. If anyone could hear me, if you're getting video, please let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know how it sounds. Good to go? Awesome. Good to go. I can take him.
I'll check it. Or
Okay.
feel free.
Okay, free. Good boy. You get to work with me today. Let's just getting started. You'll be upset that mommy goes? Okay. I can hear. Oh, good. Do I sound like I'm in a tunnel? Like I did. Like I did the other day? Sound quality okay? Need any adjustments? Get started in a minute here. I have made so many adjustments today. Uh-oh, you're not hearing, Dave? Is anybody else not hearing audio? Sounds good to you? Okay. Anyone else? Audio problems? You go boy, you gonna work with me today? So, go boy. Okay. All right, let's see. We're gonna try to juggle a lot here tonight. All right. I was just listening to recording from 2 weeks ago. Weird. Oh, okay. No tunnel talk today? Okay, good. Thank you. Usually Judy's my quality control, my definite quality control when she was in the room last stream. Okay, we're gonna get started on today's stream. First, what I want to do is I want to apologize for last week's stream. Not last week. What's today? Wednesday? Saturday stream. When everything was going on and I disconnected to monitor for a moment, I missed the message from someone that said I sounded like a tunnel. So then I continued to do an hour and 45-minute stream where I sound like on a tunnel. I went back and listened to the replay, and I was very upset. Sorry I had to sit through it. So yeah, sorry, that was horrible. So what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to sort of do a redo, but not exactly, because I don't want you to have to sit through the same exact stream. What I'm going to do is last week, going over everything, one, I sounded like I was in a tunnel. Second, I think I did a little too much information too quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go over in a more organized manner, kind of like the Cliff Notes from last week, maybe show a couple of extra little tricks, and then answer some questions so we can move on. So it's just a little bit more structured, because I try phase 3. There's a lot going on in phase 3, and I don't want to shove too much down everyone's throat. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. And then if anyone has any questions, just chime in. All right, I'm going to be in the room doing everything myself here. It looks like the stream is good. I made some adjustments. I did some color adjustments to the stream too, so we can maybe see more detail. All right. Okay, so first, really quick, I have to do this every time just in case someone is new to the stream. Remember, this is your this is the first stream you watched, remember this is in a series. This is in a series, and we are going to be talking about punishment today. And in particular, we're going to talk a lot about the e-collar and some mechanics of how we use the e-collar. So make sure you do not start, with Judy's dog. I actually, I live with this guy, but believe it or not, I don't ever do like really any e-collar stuff with him. Judy really does all like the most of the controlling of him, but he listens really well. He's a good boy. I mostly just do Premack principle with him, but he doesn't have a lot of experience with me using like any forms of aversives with him. But we're not really going to do much aversives anyway. I'm going to show you the mechanics, but we're going to try, I'm not going to try to do too much with Orfeo today. But if this is your first stream, remember to, let's click over here. Make sure you go to, you're probably in the live classroom. Be sure to click here. All the streams are over here in this particular series, all right? At this moment while we're working on the series. Eventually we might work on another series or a completely different topic, but for now this is where it's at. You should start at the introduction, work your way through. You do not want to start doing any like e-collar stuff without doing things in the proper order. All right. Now, things I want to go over with phase 3, I say this is going to be a redo of the other stream. We're going to try to cut some of the fat off of it. Is we are working in our phase 3, so we're working down here, escape conditioning and avoidance conditioning for a different training collar, which will be more motivational. Even though technically you can use more motivation on a training collar, like a prong collar or something that you already taught in phase 2, and you could consider it phase 3 if you are getting the kind of results where the dog is not challenging the punishment at all, and you're getting the results that you need. It could be considered phase 3. Most dogs, once I feel like I'm giving off a aggressive presentation to the dog, I like to move to a training collar, right, that uses less force, that uses less physical force but has more motivation, so I can stay calm and it's safer for the dog. That's it in a nutshell. So there's 2 things I'm going to teach you on the first part, escape conditioning. Escape conditioning, to be clear, with the e-collar, you can use the e-collar really for 2 different things. And I train for them a little bit differently for each. Although I do both with all dogs because it's not that difficult. The e-collar can be used just to sort of like escalate or make a training collar that you've been using on a dog more motivational, the punishment, to bring it to a more motivational level where they're going to look to avoid it, particularly when you're dealing with the competing motivators that we already spoke about in the video the one before this. The introduction to phase 3. So if Orfeo, he actually has a prong collar on. He has a prong collar on him, and I usually use star mark collars on dogs. Judy mostly handles him, and she uses the prong collar on him. And the prong collar works exactly like the star mark, except for you use even less force for this thing. So if she's just out on like a walk or outside, she doesn't necessarily have the e-collar on him, but she'll put the prong collar on him and she doesn't have to use as much force. But the mechanics is going to be really the same way as the star mark collar. It's just a little bit more motivational for him. So that's what he has on. But suppose he is really fired up And suppose I was just wanted him to sit, right? If he didn't sit and there was a competing motivator going on, the punishment, just like with the star mark collar, right, would just be a little bit pressure up, and then we would pump the leash like this if he didn't do it. Oh, Woodle, you are such a good boy. You are such a good boy. All right. That would be the punishment what we would do. And of course, you always, even if you're using punishment, you don't forget about all of the positive, the positive training that you've done with him in phase 1 that never goes away, right? So I'm going to give him affection for listening. You are such a good boy. Or feel free. All right. Now, suppose there was something going on in here. We didn't care so much about this punishment. The e-collar in phase 3 can be designed. You can use it as an escalator, which means after a couple of pumps, you're then basically pairing it with the nick, all right, with the nick correction at the same time. And the leash will actually help give the dog direction. And you can pair it with almost anything on the leash and give it direction. But you don't want to just jump into it, all right? I'll show you what you're supposed to do in a nutshell. The other thing that we use it for is we use it for off-leash training. And when there's if you're using it for a punishment in off-leash training, the e-collar is not paired with anything that shows the dog what to do. So you need to always take that into consideration. Now, generally when I'm training a dog, if I plan on training the dog off-leash anyway, I usually train with the e-collar as if I'm going to train the dog off-leash, and then you can always use it as an escalator, all right? So that's what I'm going to show you in this video, that you can train the dog as if you're going to train the dog off-leash anyway. Then it's going to work fine as an escalator at that point, all right? Now, for escape conditioning, the first thing that you do need to do is you need to at least find out what level the dog is even responding to, the dog even considers to be a motivator. So the first thing that I do with any dog is I usually just pair it up with regular leash manners, right? If we look at Orfeo over here, you are such a good boy. You are such a good boy, right? He is just on a loose, short leash with me. He's doing leash manners. If he was to make this leash tight, right, all as I would do is just pump, I would pump the leash and he would come closer to me, and that's really it, all right? Now, phase 3, you need to choose your training environment that you're going to be in. Every phase, you need to choose the training environment that's going to help the dog learn. If they're in phase 3, you generally need a certain level of distractions, right? If you do not have a certain level of distractions, you do not have a competing motivator that you can use for the dog to challenge, which you already have done, so you can teach him the e-collar. I would never really teach a dog e-collar in this situation, because the dog has really no reason to disobey, all right, in this situation. But what I would do, the first thing I always do is I pair it up. Now what I'm going to show you a few different mechanics, all right? I'm going to be clearer on the mechanics of how I handle these things, clearer than we were in the last video, all right? So let me see if I can get this on screen over here, all right? I'm using an old Dogtra 2300. Now, you can use really any e-collar that you feel comfortable with. I'm going to show you how to control the Dogtra one, because this is the one that I use, but you can use any e-collar. But the point that I want to make is any training you do with a dog is the mechanics of how you handle the equipment. It must be thought about. You must think about it, because you do not want to be fumbling with equipment when you need to have quick timing and you need to teach a dog. And you do not want to lose control of the dog in the process too, for safety reasons. Also, if you are a professional trainer or you are helping other people, you need to make sure too that you're communicating with the owner these things too, because you can be explaining to them all these things with great timing on how to do things. But if they're fumbling around with this equipment, it's going to be sloppy. So even if you demonstrate yourself doing it first, you need to be able to explain to them in a way that they can repeat it. Now, with these dog tricolors, right, I use these dog tricolors because they have 127 different levels. And I'm just going to turn up my volume on this laptop so I could hear if anyone chimes in. You are such a good boy. Is you want to be able to handle the e-collars ideally with one hand. The dog tricolors generally work best in the right hand, and you want to be able to do everything with this. I use mostly the nick, all right? I use mostly the nick on these things. And on this model, 2300, the nick is on the top side. There's a continuous button that's below it. So I usually do my index finger to do the nick. Now, the dial on top, there's two ways that I would do it. I'm very good with just taking my thumb, and I get used to using it by adjusting with my thumb. You know, mostly it's not easy to go from like 0 to 127 just using your thumb, but usually I know my starting point. Like suppose I knew he was working like on level 15 and I was starting him on 15. From here, I can do, if I want to turn him down, I can easily just do it with my thumb all the way down to 0. Or if I guesstimated, if I guesstimated a little bit too low, it's not that hard for me to move it up a little bit with my thumb. You know, I can easily jump up, I'm jumping up 50, something just with my thumb. The other way that you can do it is you can slide your index finger up too and do it with your finger and your thumb over here to adjust the levels. And then you have your middle finger that you can have on the nick button, and if you had to use the continuous, you can either use it with your ring finger or you could slide back down and do it. I personally rarely use the continuous button for anything. I'm usually up here doing these things, and I'm not telling you this is exactly how you have to hold this e-collar or any e-collar. What I am telling you is you should think of these things and practice it before you do it, because I do not really look at the e-collar when I'm training. Besides looking at the starting level, I don't really look at the number, right? If I have to do a boost, if I misjudge, I generally know about how much I'm gonna boost without even looking at it, all right? I know about, because the number is really not as important. It's the reaction you get from the dog, because you're going to get slightly different reaction depending on where it's on the dog's neck and different types of factors. All right, so that is number one. So now when I have this, it's easy for me to handle it like this. Now when I'm training, you have to consider what you're wearing. You should be like wear something appropriate for training if you're being serious about training. I've always just been like, my work gear was always just jeans and t-shirt, right? Jeans and t-shirt. And one of the reasons why I liked wearing jeans when I trained is because I just have the belt loops. So this is something I would do in the e-collar. I would always take the what do we call this darn thing? Help me out, somebody. Well, this thing, the rope thing on there. I'll take it, thread it through a belt loop. All right, like so. And then I pull this through. This is how I would have it on my right side. on my right side in particular, because I use this thing with my right hand. So this gave me a little bit safety. If for some reason I had to drop this quick, you know, it's not going anywhere, right? It's attached to me. So it acts like as a safety, and then from there, I would hook it. I usually would hook it on my pocket. And this allows me to do different types of training easily and to have access to this, all right? So I'm going to show you different mechanics before I even show you the training, when to use it and the timing, all right? I would hold it in my hand. Now from here, I can easily, if I'm using the e-collar, if I know the level, I can then also, I would use it with my thumb, all right? If I knew the level, I could use it with my thumb, or I could pull this thing off and spin it around, and I have it in my hand like this, if I needed to put it in my hand to do different things. Now, I have it here, basic mechanic now, if I'm training a dog for heel, let's just say for heel. In phase 2, you'll see, if we're in phase 1, right, we're doing stuff like this. We're like, I'd put the leash in my right hand, over my elbow, and I was taking treats, right? And we do stuff like this. Right, this was the phase 1. What a good boy. You are a good boy. You are such a good boy, right? All right, that's like phase 1 mechanics. Now, phase 2, when you're teaching them when punishment is coming, right? Then from there, what I would do, well, he wants more, is then I would do my good old leash ninja stuff, right? I would have my reserve in my right hand, and I have my leash in my right hand, and then I have my zip hand with the left, right? And this is how I would teach phase 2 style. I'm going out of frame. Sorry, guys. Let me put on the bigger screen here. Go like this. All right. All right, so this is how I would hold in phase 2, and I would call this right here, I call this a right hand heel. The leash is here. It allows me very easily to zip down to stop the dog when I'm teaching the dog, and then to give the dog a lot of leash, right? Because I like the dog back here. Let me change my camera position so we see more of the room. A little better. All right, so you a good boy. This is a right hand heel. All right, he has lots and lots of loose leash back here, but I have my zip hand if I need to, right, to stop him, get my head start, zip it back up, and he has all this loose leash. What a good boy. What a good boy. All right, so this is when I'm using less treats, and then generally from here, right, I could stop. I can still take treats from my pocket, give it to him, but I have better control. I'm doing more punishment. I'm teaching punishment in phase 2, right, when it happens. So there's that. Now in phase 3, I switch to what's called the left hand heel. All right, so the left hand heel now is because I already done a lot of the teaching and showing what happens in phase 2. I'll then take the leash and I do a left hand heel. It means I take the leash in the left hand, all right? And from here, I do a finger lock, right? You can look at the Leash Ninja videos. LeashNinja.com will take you right to it and give you some basics on the leash. But a left hand heel is when I do this in phase 3. In phase 3, see, I could heel around with them anytime with just my left here, and he has a loose leash. What a good boy, right? And I can still do things without an e-collar. I could still stop if I have to. I could pop them with this. You can adjust it. It's not as comfortable if you're doing a lot of teaching and you're showing the dog a lot of things. But now it gives me access, if I need to use my right hand on my e-collar. So now if I'm doing things like I'll show you, if I'm just going to use it to escalate, if he's not responding, when I pop, I have my thumb. I could very easily just throw my thumb and do the e-collar at the same time. Or if I'm really like working on high distractions and I really want to be able to adjust the level, and what we will talk about this when we start going into the advanced stuff, you know, some of our streams coming up, I can hold this And I can control him with my left hand with the leash, and with my thumb and fingers, I could control everything I need in the e-collar. All right, so I could bounce around and I could do everything. And this, if I have some kind of emergency, right? I mean, if I had to drop this, it's attached to me, and I could still take this anyway and just flip it back onto my pocket, or even put it on in my pocket if I have to do something quickly. All right. So this is what we do for the heel. It's about speed, and you want to be able to think about these things, all right? The other thing is being able to use the e-collar for sits and downs when we're doing this. Now you're going to see when we're doing sits and downs, if we're trying to teach the dog a sit or down with the e-collar and they get confused, we're going to need to be able to show the dog quickly, right? Quickly what they're supposed to do. Yes. Hello. Oh, hey, Carlos. Hey, Carlos. We missed each other last night. We'll catch up. All right. We'll catch up. You good boy. You want to do some training? All right. Now, if I'm doing sits and downs, you'll notice the way that I do it. Now, this is hard. Like, suppose I want him to sit with the e-collar from back here. And when I show you about escape conditioning, if I have this over here, the remote collar in my right hand and the leash in my left hand, and he gets confused when I tap him and he starts coming towards me or something, if I have all this arm and leash, it's going to be very hard to fix him easily, all right? But same thing, if you have an idea of the level, you can keep it on. What I would generally do is I would hold the leash with my right hand. I'll have my zip hand ready, and then if I'm teaching him like a sit with an e-collar and he's a bit of a distance from me and he gets confused, I can always, after I do the e-collar, if he's confused, I could still, if I have the leash like this, right, I can still press the button. If I have to, I can even hold it. It's not hard to juggle all of this if you're holding the leash the right way, but I have the zip hand to help the dog quick after the punishment. You need to always be into a position to teach the dog quickly, to make it a smooth process. All right, I'm going to keep moving along. I'm going to show you a lot of things here quickly so you can easily, go through the replay of this too to show you some of these mechanics with the e-collar, all right? Now, you can use that too for things when we're teaching things like the e-collar for the place. When it comes where you have to actually, if I told him to go to the place and he didn't respond, and we were using the e-collar to teach him how to go to the place, I can, if I have this on my side, or even if I hold it, if he does not respond and I do the e-collar, I still have this zip hand after I press the button where I can zip and show him pretty easily what to do, all right? You could still do it. So this can go in your right hand with your leash, or it can stay to your side if you know the level, and you can press it with the thumb, then you still have that zip hand. You're being a good boy. You're going to just get some treats for being a sport. All right? You are such a good boy. You are such a good boy. Okay. The other thing that you want to consider when we're doing e-collar for come that makes life a lot easier when you're juggling all this stuff. If you're going to do like reward, e-collar, everything, is even though these have a bad name, a lot of people hate them, especially if the general public is just like walking down New York City street with the dog on the end of like a 26-foot flexi, right? These get a bad name. I love flexi leashes for training, all right? In particular, the recall. I use it for teaching come when called. The reason why is after we do, the dog learns to come well on a 6-foot leash, when we start using distance with it, and there's some good how to use it in the phase 2 training videos even now, it just makes things so much easier to teach the dog at a distance when the punishment comes without you needing to like juggle a long line, which we do have a video for that, which I can show you. We could even do a stream on there. With this, very easy, right? If I'm teaching, if we get the dog distracted from a distance with the flexi, after you do it on the 6-foot leash, it is pretty easy if you tell the dog come, they don't respond, and you're teaching the e-collar, to use the e-collar, and if they seem confused, you press the button on this flexi, right, and just give them a little nudge towards you. Easy as pie. It is so easy. You want to make these things easier, right? For reference, look in the phase 2 videos. Look for phase 2 flexi come. Phase 2 flexi come shows how to do it in phase 2. Then phase 3 is simply is going to be adding the e-collar to it. All right. So those are some basic considerations when using the e-collar in training. All right. Last stream, it sounded like I was talking in a tunnel. We tried to give you like a crash course and kind of like how to do like everything with it. What I will do is the things that are not clear inside of like the training videos that we have, I'll probably take Darcy and just kind of like train her from scratch in here to show you the different things. You don't want to go through all the exercises with the new dog and show how to train it. But we will go through there. But I want to give you an overview, and then we could get as detailed as we want. Because I want to show you some, we got to go into how to do some basics for making plans for the advanced exercises. And I also want to go into like blueprints for different behavioral problems and how we're going to use this obedience to help with those behavioral problems. There's so much stuff we want to cover. This is just an overview. All right, this is just an overview, and it's enough for anyone that's on the site now with a little bit of help with the videos and asking questions. We could steer you in the right direction. All right. Next thing that I do want to go over, you are a good boy. You are such a good boy. All right. Is things to consider. Anything you do with the e-collar, because it's non-directional, and this is very similar to rules that we've done in phase 2. Is remember in phase 2, go into the phase 2 video when we're teaching a new exercise. It's let me see, suppose we're doing phase 1, right? He ready to do phase 1 for sit, right? Orfeo, sit, good boy. All right, when we're doing phase 1, it's just treat based, right? There's no punishment at all. Now, Orfeo, sit, good boy. Orfeo, free, good. Now, when we would teach phase 2, if you listen in some of our very old videos, the Earl videos, which are over a decade old, we used to, when I was doing layman terms to the clients, I used to call escape conditioning in phase 2, I used to call them transitional sits. If I was doing phase 2, if I was doing escape conditioning on the sit for the leash. The reason why I would call it transitional exercises is because I was teaching the client that the transition from the dog doing it just for reward-based training and doing it also to avoid punishment, that transition was basically the escape conditioning. You had to kind of teach him what this punishment is about. So what would happen is everything would start phase 1, right? So if I did sit, he would only go into the sit for the reward. I would not try to put them in the reward, but to put them in the sit, but then I would keep them in the sit with the leash when they were learning the first time, because it's always easier to get a dog back into a position that they're already in if they don't know what the punishment, if they don't understand the punishment, right? Instead of starting with him standing. So in phase 2, if I was even doing the prong collar, right, this was the first time, he's already in the sit. If he breaks that first time, he's probably not going to break. You're going to be a good boy. All right. If he was to break, I'm right here, right? I could go right over and I could do little pumps. Right up, nice and easy, easy peasy, right? That's all we have to do, and it's so much easier for them to get into the sit. And if he needed help after I did this, I can go backwards and use my phase one. I could pump and still lure him to show him to go back in. So I would introduce the new, help with the old if I needed. And if he seemed okay with that, Orfeo free, I would then try to get him into the sit using the leash as the primary punishment. Then I would try from him out of position and do it. I would tell him to sit, and if he didn't sit, I would go to the pump. All right. And if he seemed okay with that, or if he needed help, and he needed help with that, I would help with the phase one, with the rewards. All right. Is everything okay? Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, okay, you can do that. Okay, Judy came in to distract her dog. I just don't want to be unfair to him because he's used to listening to you. And then, all right, Orfeo, sit. He doesn't need to mess up for it. Yeah, that's fine. Orfeo, free. He has to do a lot of stuff. He's just mostly a dummy for us right now. You're not a dummy. I didn't mean it like that. Okay, now phase three, we're going into phase three. Every exercise is going to be like this. Escape conditioning for phase three is similar to the escape conditioning in phase two, except it's the transition from phase two to phase three, which means we put him in the positions with phase two, which would be what he learned with the prong collar, right? So if he didn't respond, I wouldn't have to use the reward to lure him in. If I told him Orfeo sit and he didn't, I can use the leash, but I would put him in with the phase two with the leash, but I would leave him in with the phase three, the e-collar, because this is what I want him to learn. And if he's already in the sit, it makes it easier for him to learn it. So in this case, what I would do is when he would break, I would do the e-collar first, usually just like a nick or maybe a couple of nicks to see if he's feeling it. And if he seems like he notices this and he's confused, I would help him with the leash. All right. So he would break. I would say sit, what he's supposed to do with the e-collar. The lowest level I think is going to be aversive to him. Then I would help him with the leash, right? Phase two would be leash if he didn't understood it, help with the phase one, with the treat. Phase three, we put him in, we help with the leash. No, we punish him first with the e-collar, help with the leash, all right? So he goes in with the leash, keep him in with the e-collar, help him with the leash. From phase one to phase two, put him in with the treat, punish him with the leash. If he needs help, back with the treat. All right. Going into phase three, put him in with the leash, punish him with the e-collar, help him with the leash. All right. But they must be in position. Next, what we would do, just like with if he seemed okay with that, Orfeo, free, good boy, I would want to make sure he understands the e-collar from out of position. So we distract him enough so he does not respond to the sit. His first punishment is with the e-collar. If he seems confused, we put him in with the leash, all right? This is escape conditioning, but it's also why we used to call that exercise transitional exercises. It was the transition because we were doing some phase two and introducing to phase three. All right. Now that is how all these exercises are going to work. I'm not going to go through all of them in this stream because it will take too long, and I want you to be able to get the basics, and be able to easily go through the replay. But the down would be the same sort of idea. The sit is the same idea. The place is the same idea, right? We would put him in the place in phase three with the leash, and then I would keep him in with the remote, but I'm ready to help with the leash. Once he seems like he's not confused, and he's responding the right way to the e-collar, then I could do distance. Rafael, free, good boy. Then I could do distance with him, and if he's distracted and he does not respond, I can do the first punishment with the remote. Then if he's confused, I can help him with the leash. All right? Everything is like that. Everything is like that, all right? Doing the heel. The first time he gets introduced to the remote collar on the heel, he will be in the heel position. He would be in the heel position, and as soon as he gets out, I'll do just the e-collar, and then if he needs help, I put him right back with the leash. Once he is good with that, as long as your dog understands some basic heel seek, and you've done it in phase 2, if I wanted to use the e-collar to get him in position, if he disobeyed and he's out here, I could say his name and then heel. And if he didn't respond, I could do the e-collar from here and say heel. And if he was confused, then help him with the leash to put back into position. All right. What you're looking for in escape conditioning. Remember, escape conditioning is the process of actually teaching punishment. You need them to mess up. You need to get enough distractions so that they mess up. So you want to give them the e-collar correction and then show them how to escape it. It is not a good training session. Like, this would not be a good training session if he was just responding everything to me and he happens to have an e-collar on, because he doesn't learn anything, right? Judy came in here a moment because she wanted him to mess up so I can show you. But that's not what we want to do right now, because we're never going to get through the whole stream. But it's an easy concept. All right, Kim writes, any advice for layering a fair amount of distractions with the dog to break position? Do you have a standard escalation protocol for layering them? Oh yeah, Kim, pretty easy actually. There's a few ways to do it. If I'm working, a lot of times when we were doing, when I was running an in-kennel program here, and I usually had like 2 other trainers with me, one way that was really easy is we would just bring multiple dogs, in here. If some dogs were just distracted by the other dog, or we had some dogs that were like reactive to other dogs, just bring in another dog within sight. And again, sometimes it's when visual, it could control the distance. I may be on the other side, like in the corner, and then the door opens and someone's working on the far corner, and that may be just enough to get the dog distracted where they were breaking or they were ignoring commands. Or we would add some play to it. Usually the dog already has an idea. You incorporate play even in phase 2, but sometimes someone distracts, like with a toy or something like that, and when they mess up, it's really easy to train them that way because their adrenaline is going, and the dogs automatically become like harder. Like harder meaning they could take punishment better and bounce back from it when their adrenaline is going. So a lot of times we would like incorporate the ball or the tug or whatever, and when the dog breaks, we would use the e-collar, and we would still make sure we'd praise the dog for doing good and ham it up. We always keep that teacher's attitude and a lot of praise. Then we'd release the dog and let the dog play. Or we would just take the dog simply out from here to the parking lot. This is attached to this area right here is actually underneath an animal hospital. It's in the same building. So we go in the parking lot, and they were just like, it's a decent sized parking lot, and we would just be able to create distance from the distractions of the dogs coming in and out of the animal hospital, and we would have instant distractions up over there. Or we take a dog to like a park. Usually phase 3 is where we really kind of come out of like the actual classroom and move about. But one thing that I've always done is I always had patience, and these early stages before phase 3, I kept the teaching environment as simple as possible. You don't need to have a clear, creepy training room like this. It could be, a client could do it right in their living room. They can train, even very small apartments, you'll be surprised. You can make a healing space like around the dining room table or whatever, and you can get a lot of stuff done. You find a nice space to teach. My analogy is like, a kid in a classroom. Like you give them a nice, quiet environment to learn, or even teaching a sport to somebody. You go in the backyard with the kid, and you throw a ball with them, and then you could teach them some pass patterns, and then eventually you stick them in the game. If not, it's going to be hard for them to learn with all the distractions and everything else going on. But yeah, you go nice and slow. You need distractions are good, but you can control the intensity of that competing motivator. You need to think about that. Like some people, you'll see a lot of people they're ready to fix a problem. They just bring the dog head on, whatever the problem is, and it becomes much more of a stressful experience what it has to be. You think about, I need just enough for the dog to mess up so I can teach the dog. And then you'll be surprised, you get closer and closer and you make the dog successful. But phase 3 allows you to move. Once it kind of gets rolling, you could make a lot of progress really quick, but it never has to be very, very stressful. All right. Sharon says, or move training environment from inside the house to backyard to front yard. Yeah, great. Yep. And that's another thing I would do here. Like sometimes I would simply come from here and I would just go in the fenced in yard, which is filled with grass, and there's scents of animals and they want to do stuff. And they were used to healing in here where there's not much going on. And then I go out in the grass and they're more likely to drop their head, start sniffing. And as soon as they drop their head, you can punish, right? I discourage that behavior. They drop their head and start sniffing. To me, heel should be mind and body where it's supposed to be, right? Once that head drops, it gives me a reason to give them a little tap with the nick and then show them where to be and to praise them. So you go nice and slow like that. Yeah, good, Sharon. So yeah, you go slow like that. It does not it should never be a quick process. But by moving slow, you move quicker. All right, you move quicker. But all the exercises, think of it like that, all right? You're taking them out of position, you first have them in the position you want them to be, so it's easier to put them back. And when they seem like you give them that nick and they know what to do, then you can start moving them further away from that position to do it. And if you do it that way, where they always get the nick first, then you show them, then it's natural and easy to use it as an escalator. Meaning, if he's on the leash, right, and I'm out in public and I have to punish him with the leash, and I give him a couple little pumps. If you then do the nick at the same time, you layer it after like a couple of pumps, they will respond to the leash way, way better. Like forever. If you get in the habit of really doing that, it becomes the leash itself becomes, even though the leash is a punisher, a primary punisher, what happens is it becomes a conditioned punisher for a more motivational punisher. And when you have the e-collar on your right side, especially, and you mostly have the dog on the left side in public, they can't even really check easily to even see if you have it. They're not really. It just becomes like a habit to them. You pump up 2 times. That's enough for them to register, and then you give a little nick. Minimum amount that gets the response, and then they start listening better even to this. That's why I really don't even use prong collars anymore, because I would just escalate. I would just escalate the star mark if I had to, and then the dogs would just respond to the star mark. Really, really well. But remember, if you're doing your phase 1 and like the dog likes being in position, you make it a positive thing for the dog to be in position, you'll see. I mean, here there's nothing going on for him, but because when I'm not interacting, even if I'm just hanging out with him, he's next to me. Like, this is when he's going to get his love, right? It's going to be good to be by me, right? It's going to be good by me every time I tell a dog to do something. I use it as an excuse to give them some love or something. So if you have that bond with the dog, they're going to want to, do the right thing for you. Like everything in life, you'll be surprised how easy it is to just reinforce the basics you do every single day. When you're healing, when you're doing training with a dog, you have to get repetition, mostly just to teach the dog what the exercises are and what the punishment is, when the reward come in. But after that training session, obedience is functional, right? You're not really using it unless it's for the dog's benefit in some way. So if I tell him to go to a place, when he's home, when he's in the apartment, he usually gets something. He goes to the place, I'm going to relax. He's going to get a bone when he's over there. Or he's going to the place because someone came in, and then he knows because he went to the place, he's going to get released and he's going to get love. We just don't do things for no reason, all right? And that's a problem sometimes with clients. They get all excited with their new obedience. They want the dog to do like 10 push-ups for no reason, just to watch the dog do it. Tell the dog, sit down, sit down, sit down. And then they're like, oh, wow, look what I just made the dog do. Or they start showing off, and the dog's like, what the hell, If you stay respectful to the dog and you basically treat the dog similar you would to like your own child, there's a reason behind why you tell them to do something. Sit nice at the table because guess what? Dinner's gonna come and then dessert's gonna come, or do this or do this when we go to the movies. Like if you treat them respectfully and with purpose and not just for showing off or for no reason, it is very easy to make everything a positive experience for the dog. If I'm not training to like compete in some sport or something, there's no reason why he has to think when I'm simply just heeling around with him that he's not going to get constant love like all the time. I'm going to stop, I'm going to love him up, I'm going to tell him good boy. It's you being by you is a good thing, right? It's going to be a good thing for him. You are such a good boy, right? Fair, set. Good boy, you're a good boy, all right? Obedience is his way to better things, all right? Because he's going to get love, or I'm going to give him a treat. Or free. You a good boy. Yes, you are. You're a good boy. All right. So, okay. Next point we want to make. Good. And we'll stay on track. This will be a quicker stream. We'll see if we get this, the meat in 1 hour. And then you could ask any more questions. Is you need, when you're teaching e-collar, you want to do things in a certain order. Remember, e-collar is it's not really directional, all right? It doesn't really show them what to do. You show them what to do to help them, but to make things easier for the dog, I have found that it is so much easier when you do not take the e-collar and start like layering it with every single command at once, all right? You're going to overwhelm the dog. Pick a few commands to focus on before, pick a few commands to focus on, and when the dog gets a handle on it, then you can move to some others. I group them into similar type of exercises. For example, I usually start off with using the e-collar for exercises where the punishment generally requires coming closer to me first. And that's why I usually start off with just simply leash manners, right? If he knows that when I'm standing still, he just has to be on a loose leash next to me, that's the first thing I do, is because it's very easy for me to go outside, find a distraction or something, and have a lot of reasons to be able to find that level. And then once he sort of like starts noticing it, it's easy to show him just to come closer to me with it and love him. Then once he knows that, it is easy, it's not going to be confusing to him at all if I start pairing it with the heel. Because even though he has to do a few, like if he's ahead of me, he has to sort of like stop when I pop it. He's still responding to, he'll be responding to this prong. I pop him, and he kind of like stops, and he ends up kind of better in the right position. But all the other ones, he's mostly coming closer to me and staying near me. So it's easy for him to relate it to the first one I did with leash manners. Then what I'll do is I'll use like for the recall, for coming when called, again, because when he's at the end of the leash, and if he's not responding to the recall, and then I come down and I do the e-collar, he's gonna if he's confused, I could help him again. He's coming closer to me. everything is closer to me, he'll pick up on each of these nice and easy, and you could kind of work on all of them almost the same time, and it's not a big deal because he does not have to get confused. Now, if I was to use the e-collar, I'm introducing it to him and I'm using it for him coming to me, and then I'm also using it as a punishment to move away from me to go to the place. Now, not only does he have to learn the e-collar, the basic concepts of it, he has to sort of like do two opposite things with it, which they absolutely can learn, but it is easier and you'll move quicker if you see he gets a handle on all the ones where you come closer to you. Then you'll see the first time he has to do something where he moves away from you, he might be a little bit confused in the escape conditioning. But then after he picks up on that, sending him to the place, if I want to use it to teach him to go to the car or go onto a climb or anything where I'm sending him off to something, it becomes easier. Again, he's like, oh, that's like this, that's like this, that's like this. Then once he gets a handle on it, then I will do things that involve changing positions, like going from the sit, using it for a sit, the down, for the stand if you want to do it, anything that involves him staying stationary. If not, again, if he's used to moving towards you when he gets it, and then you want to do the sit or the down too quickly, sometimes he has to focus on standing still, and sometimes he has to move. They can figure it out, but it's easier if you let him get a handle on something first that he can generalize to the other exercises. This is no different from doing things like if you're using e-collar for like housebreaking, right? First, you want to maximize teaching the dog good habits of what is good around the house, so you don't really have to punish them. But then if I do want to teach a dog to like not counter surf, not go in the garbage, not pick up shoes, not poop in the house, if they're doing all these things, if for some reason you have a dog that's doing a lot of bad behaviors where you feel you do need to use an e-collar, you do not want to use an e-collar for housebreaking and just be like poop, 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 popping them for everything. They're going to be scared to walk around the house. They're not going to like it. You pick one thing like counter surfing, and you see that they understand that and they're not doing it for a couple of days, then go to the garbage. You'll move quicker this way with less confusion than doing everything at the same time. Then focus on things on the floor. If you want the dog not to pick up anything unless you hand it to the dog, then do things that are on the floor. They pick up on the shoe, then they pick on that. They could generalize everything, but you don't go too quick. By going slower, you go quicker, because most of these, if you're putting in effort, it's just a few days, and you see they have a clear understanding. They're not all stressed out. You're not getting like that panting dog that's like, what the heck is going on, that doesn't want to be with you. It's easy for them to learn if you break it down like that. All right? So does anyone have any questions about, I say this is an intro to mechanics of phase 3 and some things to consider, all right? Things to consider, not to mix them up, that aren't necessarily covered if you just look at like a video of how to do one exercise, okay? I am going to show you, I will go into more detail of each single exercise. It's actually easy. Like the more you know the basics, the foundation, learning to do a single exercise with the e-collar is actually very easy, right? But it's too much to swallow in one stream, which we kind of sort of did last stream with a tunnel voice. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Or are we good? All right, what I'm going to do next stream, I am going to attempt to keep moving. I want to do a stream on Saturday, but I'm not going to be in the training area. I'm going to be, oh, Dave says, I don't know. I don't know what. What did I say? I told, everything okay, Dave? Oh, thanks, Mike. Okay. You're welcome. All right, everything's good. I'm going to try to, I'm going to schedule for a, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Daryl. I'm going to schedule a stream for Saturday. I'm actually not going to be here. I'm going to be, my son's mother is away for the weekend, and I'm going to be watching them, but I'm going to schedule for 9 p.m. on Saturday instead of the regular 8. And even though I'm not going to have a training room, I just want to talk about, I'm going to do a stream on probably just a little bit more, I'm going to do some detail on chaining. So how we can teach dogs to do like kind of more advanced exercises, through chaining. Things like if you want to do something like retrieving or getting dogs to like open up doors or any type of task like that. It's like how you could kind of map out a plan for doing those things and just understand the concept of chaining, because you really need to understand that if you want to move along and make your own training plans. Right now, what I'm thinking the plan is I want to go over some, chaining, and maybe we'll also I'll review shaping quickly and chaining. And then I think which is going to be most useful is I'm going to go over some basic blueprints for things like what would a basic blueprint plan look like for like a fear aggressive dog, a dominant aggressive dog, whatever you could think of. You can make a big list of requests. I think it's good to see how many I could fit in a stream. Just some blueprints, so you have like an idea of like, okay, this is how we're going to work on these particular problems, and then I will also do more. And then at some point, I want to put in more details of how to do the hands-on exercises, like anything that is not clear in the videos that we have up now. All right. Okay, Judy says, no questions, but the dog is so handsome. Yes, he is. He is so handsome. Such a good boy. He's a very, very good boy, Orfeo. Okay. All right, so everyone have a good night. I love doing these streams with you guys. If anyone has any requests or concerns or things they want to be covered in this, in this series, let me know, okay? Let me know. You can put it in the classroom, and I'll try to get it in in the right order. All right? Remember, you could also ask questions in the forums, too. You can put questions in the forums. Right, everyone have a good night. And I guess my tweaking helped. We didn't get booted off today or anything. All right. Good night, everybody. Deconditioning. All right, we are going to cover everything.